in and joining me in the last live stream, and it just clicked off, so I have to link a part 2 again. I'm getting a new phone this week. It's coming in the mail, so hopefully, I'll have like a bunch of freed up storage and everything, and maybe that will help. And it's a little bit newer of a phone. So anyways, hopefully you guys will find me back in here, and then I'll have to link the videos together, part 1 and part 2. But if you have, so we were just really diving into it. So if you have, so Jupiter return happens every 12 years, and it's actually your Chinese zodiac. So maybe I'll title this part 2 that. So if, when you're having your year, if you're the year of the rabbit, you're going to be having your Jupiter return right around the year that you're having your Chinese zodiac year. Okay. And that's what I think brings that Chinese zodiac luck, is that you're having your Jupiter return. I just figured that out in the last year. So that was sort of the trick that I was tripping over myself on just right before it clicked off. So when it comes to, yeah, so like for instance, the last 2 people that I dated, one was 3 years younger and one was 3 years older, approximately, like 3.5 years. They're both September babies. I'm an April baby. I've been, like, everyone I've dated for the last 2 years is like, I'm just surrounded by September babies, but, it's quincunx my sun and conjunct my moon. So anyways, what was I gonna say? Oh, so I had Saturn trine Saturn with both of them. So the babies that are 3 years younger than me, we have their Saturns in Leo, my Saturn's in Sagittarius, and the ones that are 3 years older than me, I believe I think their Saturn might be in Leo too. No, I don't know. But I know that it's 3-year intervals. So like somebody who's 9 years older than me, their Saturn is going to be in Aries. I think it's in Aries. So if it's 3 years, if somebody's 3 years older or younger than you, approximately, give or take, you're going to have a Saturn trine. If they're 6 years older or younger than you, approximately, because it's like 2.5 to 3 years intervals that Saturn changes signs, then they're going to, and it's, it goes by the month too that you're born. So if it's the same year as you, you're most likely going to have a Saturn conjunction. If it's 3 years older or younger than you, then you're going to have a trine. If it's 6 years older or younger than you, you're going to have a sextile, I believe. And then I think it's 6 years is something too. I just had it in my brain and I just lost it. And then 9 years again, I think, is another trine or something like that. I should have looked. But you're going to have Saturn to Saturn compatibility with people within 3 years interval of you and people the same age as you. So again, it's just because you have Saturn to Saturn compatibility doesn't mean that, you're meant to be. Again, because you could have it with anybody born, in those intervals. But like I was saying, if I'm dating someone born April 10th and I'm 11th and their moon is in, what would it be before me? Leo, and it's not making a semi-sextile, our Saturns are exactly conjunct, it's not going to work. But if I'm dating someone born April 15th of my year, their moon is in Scorpio, because I knew someone like that, and our Saturns are conjunct, then it's definitely going to be very reinforcing and give longevity, okay? If you're dating, so same goes for it. It's not going to, hey, Richard. Yes, Richard, I am an astrologist, if you couldn't tell. And that is how I make my living and my income. If you want me to run your birth chart or cast it, my packages are at rotation411.com. I'm also a tarot reader. I'm an intuitive, and the astrology programmer I was talking to and working with, it's like I am an intuitive and also a mathematical astrologist, which is rare. Usually an astrologist is one or the other. They're very logical or they're very intuitive. So I am both. Unapologetically, hey, unapologetically mystic, how are you? So, that's something I kind of wanted to touch on really quickly too, is the name asteroids. So, okay, so we're going to get into the negative Saturn. Okay, now I'm tripping over myself. Jupiter to Jupiter, positive, let's talk about that. And then we're going to get into sort of the negative Saturn to Saturn and the negative Jupiter to Jupiter, and that will lead me into what I want to say. So, Jupiter to Jupiter is also very benefic. So if you have, you're also going to have this with people in approximate 3-year intervals. So the people that's where I think the Leo thing came in. The people that are 3 years younger than me, their Jupiter's in Leo. So we have my Jupiter's in Aries, so we have a trine. The people that are 3 years older than me, their Jupiter's in Sagittarius. So there's a trine there. So because it's, every 12 years Jupiter moves through all the signs. He moves through a sign every year approximately. Again, if you guys didn't catch it because you're just coming in, that means that the year of your Chinese zodiac, your lucky year, Jupiter is luck, wealth, and benevolence, is the year that your Jupiter returns every 12 years. So with that being said, it might kick me out again, you guys, so just know I'm going to pop right back on if it does that, and just come find me. I'm sorry that it's doing that. Like I said, I'm getting a new phone this week, so hopefully that will help. But Jupiter, so when you have positive Jupiter contacts, it's like Jupiter trine or conjunct, and it's same applies if it's the same age as you. The malefics and the moons are really going to define whether it works, but it will be more disappointing if you have Jupiter conjunct Jupiter or Jupiter trine Jupiter, and then you have a malefic or your moons aren't compatible. This Jupiter brings joy. So if and he brings a legitimacy too, because he's lost, so he'll make you want to legalize it, like in a fun way, where Saturn will make you want to in a responsible way. I've mentioned that before. So if you have Jupiter trine Jupiter, you're really excited about being with this person. You're really happy to be with them. When you guys go out in public, you love being around people. People know you as a happy couple. Even if there's like jealousy aspects or jealousy in the environment, like you two just enjoy each other so much that it's almost like people are like, get a room. You know what I mean? When your Jupiter is trine Jupiter or something like that. Like you two are just like, you two come in and you are sort of the it couple. Jupiter can bring fame as well if he's well aspected. So, if you have Jupiter trine Jupiter, that's the type of person that you can go out with and have a great time with. Again, the other aspects, there might be other sort of, challenges or issues there. But overall, even then, you two might go out and have a bad night where another person you don't have well aspected Jupiter with, you may be like, I'm never going to take you out again. But when you have Jupiter trine Jupiter, you might be like, oh, well, let's go out again. Who cares what everyone else thinks, So it's sort of that kind of a thing. So now let's kind of get into the negative aspects. So the other day, sometimes I trip up on myself, you guys. I said that J-Lo and Ben Affleck have their moons in Leo. Actually, it's their suns, so I kind of messed that up. So I want to clarify that if you watch that video. But their moons are both in Scorpio. Now, they have their suns and their moons in a very wide orb, but it's friendly sign, it's same sign. It doesn't matter the orb. It's having your suns in the same sign and your moons in the same sign. For them, it's pretty wide, though. Like, it's a 20-degree moiety or an orb on the sun's pole. But still, friendly sign is going to trump any other kind of aspect. So they're just simpatico and they're the same in a lot of ways of personality and emotion. So the reason that J-Lo and Ben Affleck didn't get together when they were younger, right? They got together and they got engaged, but the reason that they didn't get married and they had to go marry other people, perfect example, Jupiter, they have Jupiter, I can't remember if it's a square or an opposition, but if you see Jupiter opposition or square Jupiter, most likely you two, and this is, the way it clicked for me was J-Lo and Ben Affleck, and also my mother and her current husband. They were like together when they were like 18 and they were engaged, and then they had to marry other people before they could come together, just like J-Lo and Ben Affleck. And they have a moon trine. And they have like great, sun, moon, ascendant contacts. And they've been married 20 years. It's her longest marriage. And she actually didn't have moon compatibility with the first two husbands. Lots of malefics with my father. So I already had these theories. Her 3 marriages just reaffirmed them when I looked into them. So, but it made me catch the Jupiter opposition Jupiter thing. And then when I saw J-Lo and Ben Affleck, I was like, aha. And then I've had clients come to me since that are like, we were together when we were 20 and now we just got back together. I'm like, you guys, if they don't have, any malefics and they have moon compatibility, I'm like, I think you two might have a shot here, and people don't think J-Lo and Ben Affleck are going to make it. But other than that, I do think they're going to surprise you guys there. So, and if you go watch my celebrity Synastry videos, you'll see like I did Megan Fox and MGK and they broke up. I think there's a Kim Kardashian and Kanye. That was a pretty awful one tech-wise. So if you can stumble through it, I was right about them too. So anyways, with that being said, I am going to get back to the big 144 series, which is where we cover all the sun, moon, and risings. I was going to do them live, but I think I'm actually going to record them when I get my new device and have all that memory. So I know Scorpio, Sun, Aries, moons. I know you guys have been waiting for a while now, but I am going to get back into that. So now we're going to go kind of, so that's negative Jupiter to Jupiter. It basically means that you will have to marry and legalize with somebody else before you two are able to marry and legalize. But if all the other aspects allow, you two probably will get back together later in life. It's that kind of a couple is going to have negative Jupiter. When it comes to Saturn square Saturn, what Saturn square Saturn does, or a Saturn opposition Saturn, okay, that's cool, Richard. So anyways, they're great, though, examples for us to look at for Synastry. So, because a lot of times their birth details are public and we have their times. You know, if you go to Astro Theme, it's cool, too, because they'll give you a rating, like they'll give you a rating how accurate that birth time is. So it might be like a C rating. And I know I did a couple, I can't remember who, where I was like, I don't think they were both like C ratings. And I'm like, I think this is a little off here. But a lot of times they're like A ratings. So you and I as an astrologist can go to whatever city they're born and pay whatever little fee and get their birth charts. And, you know, if any of you live in like a city like New York or something, you know, we should collaborate on that. Because we could, you know, I think it was J-Lo and, or no, it's Beyonce and Jay-Z that their birth time, I don't think his birth time is totally accurate. So with that being said, back up. Saturn square Saturn and Saturn opposition. Now oppositions are the ones where I do see with any kind of malefic planets the rare exceptions, like Mars opposition Jupiter. I have seen a couple of couples make it 25 years with. Most couples are still not going to make it past 2 to 4 months, just like a square. And I have a lot of clients that come to me that are like, you know, everything's good in the astrology, but they're going through the same thing that the Mars square Jupiter people go through. And so anyways, Saturn opposition or square Saturn is going to, what it creates is a real, the opposition actually does kind of work here. So that's why I guess I said that. This is where Saturn square Saturn is where you meet and you really want to be committed to each other. I often see it in affairs, just like Venus square Saturn can be in affairs, like with the people having the affair. So Saturn, because Saturn rules commitments, duties, and obligations. So if your Saturn, your commitments, duties, and obligations are squaring somebody else's commitments, duties, and obligations, squares still have that positive element in the beginning. So you want to commit to each other. You might want to leave your spouses for each other. I have this a lot with clients that they're coming to me and they're married and their person is married and they have Saturn square Saturn. And the thing is and then I always look in, if we have the spouse's birthday, I look, you know, to see, you know, whether that's going to work out or not. But even if, say, that person's going to divorce their other spouse because of malefic deal breakers, that doesn't mean that they're going to be with this person. So Saturn square Saturn just means that you really want to commit to this person. You feel like you have a future with them, kind of like Saturn square Sun can do, but that can actually work with some control issues going on. But Saturn square Saturn, it's not going to work, and you're probably going to waste like 15 years of your life waiting on that person to divorce their person, or you to divorce their person, or for their kids to leave the house because they say, oh, when my kids are grown, I'm going to leave my spouse. And then depending on the aspects, whether they do, it's still not going to work. And it can also sometimes Saturn square Saturn, I can see issues with distance. I don't know why, because Saturn doesn't really rule any that I know of off the top of my head. I don't think Saturn has much to do with distance, but it can be career problems too, like you work together and it's your boss, and so it wouldn't be appropriate type of thing, or it can be where their career makes them be out of the country from you and they can't, neither of you can relocate. So that's how Saturn square Saturn plays out. Now Saturn opposition Saturn usually plays out the same way, but I have seen actually a good friend of mine, I'm mumming today, you guys. I told you I'm a little tired, but I wanted to just get on here and do this. So a good friend of mine that I've known my whole life, her moon's in Taurus and she's in Aquarius, so sextile and trine with me. But she met this guy when she turned 21. He was a bartender, and she set her sights on him, and she was like, he is my man. I know it. I think I finally had a chance to look up his moon, and his moon, I believe, is in Cancer. I think he's a double Cancer. So her moon's in Taurus, so they most likely have a sextile there, okay? I haven't talked to her much in years, like we're Facebook friends or whatever, so I haven't got to ask her, but her and I used to actually dig in and study the astrology together back in the day. So we used to cast our own charts by hand, you know, and that's when we started playing with 0800 and Cafe. But anyways, so they were together and they had two kids, and they've been together like 15 years. She had made a vision board one day, and I had been wanting to make one forever, so I made my vision board. Her vision board was to move to like the big city in our state, and my vision board was to move to California, and we both ended up fulfilling those things. I want to make a video on vision boards too. I had made one, but I got to find that footage, you guys, but I looked awful in it. But I went over my whole vision board and all these crazy stories about what had manifested. And sometimes it's like real tangible stuff, and sometimes it's just like these weird coincidences, you know. And we need to do more videos on vision boards and synchronicities, because I have a lot about that for you guys. But anyways, but it's hard for me to kind of stay on track with it. So they finally got married in Vegas a couple years ago. And that's when I kind of figured out his birth year or something and looked at their charts. And it was post me knowing all this stuff from 2018 when I had my downloads. Again, when Jupiter was in Sagittarius, because Jupiter rules Sagittarius, wisdom, knowledge. Anyways, I say that a lot. So basically I looked, and the reason it took them 15 years to actually tie the knot, which at that point, and my aunt and uncle did that too, so I wouldn't be surprised if I looked in their chart and saw the same thing. Basically the Saturn opposition Saturn thing can be where it just takes, you can actually live together, be together, but it will take about, it's just because Saturn will make you commit if he's in a positive aspect, not make you, but Saturn can, or even in a square to like the Sun or Venus, he'll give that duty and that obligation, because that can work in a long-term marriage. It's a heavy energy, but it can work because it gives sort of like a sense of security. Yeah, Saturn trine Venus is obviously going to be more enjoyable life to live. But Saturn square Venus does work in long-term marriages. Mars square Saturn doesn't so much. But so Saturn is how Jules Mayberry on Truth and Aspects, she says Saturn is like the glue. So even in hard aspects, often it can work. So Saturn opposition Saturn, yes, it might have been fate, but the issue was it took them 15 years to actually officialize it before Saturn would allow them to put it on paper, because Saturn rules the devil. He rules the devil in tarot, which is Capricorn energy. So the devil in tarot is contracts. You know, the two are bound by chains. So yes, they could be fated, but there's a toxicity to that where, you know, you have to legalize it under Saturn's rule, or if you have Saturn opposition Saturn, he will withhold that from you. Saturn will make you, there's no reward without sacrifice. So in order to get that marriage and get legalized, you know, have your dream wedding, you have to put in 15 years of, will you marry me? When are you going to propose? You know, and that I've actually seen that with Venus square Saturn too, where the man he just takes well, the way that I saw it was the man, but women could do it too. I do think there's another couple that I observe that's a like semi-famous couple. I think that it's her that might kind of, you know, hold it over him, where he's always wanted to get married, but she's quite a bit younger than him, because Saturn can have to do with age gaps too. And I think she's kind of like, oh, well, maybe when I'm 30, you know, or so. I don't know what's going on there. Sometimes I tell you guys how the planets might talk. So, and in opposition, it's going to take a long time to finally legalize it. And it can deal with other marriages and things too, like the square, where you're waiting and waiting for the other person to get divorced. I've seen that with Mars square Saturn too, actually. When I was divorcing, I was dating someone. We had great aspects. The only issue we had was Mars square Saturn. So we had two issues. One is, at the time, we were both still legally married. I didn't think he'd ever actually get divorced because he had kids. He finally did. He's been married 2 more times. He's on his 3rd marriage now, like my ex-husband. Capricorns can tend to be serial monogamous. They both were. But also the other issue that we had after that, after we were both finally legally divorced, and this was just Mars square Saturn. And again, that one's just sort of agitating and annoying to live with, but it can create sort of these similar obstacles as like any kind of hard Saturn aspect. The other issue that we had, because when I moved to California for a decade, he had asked me to move home after each divorce. So when he divorced the second wife, or when he was single before he married the second wife, because he's just that type of guy, he's very religious, so he wants to be in a covenant, he wants to be in a relationship.